Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. My name is Tim, and this week, together with Citi's E for Education campaign, we're going on a journey to explore how global citizens can put that valuable skill set to work as part of a global career. Throughout this week, we'll be connecting with Citi employees in financial capitals around the world. They have generously agreed to share their stories, observations, and tips for finding success in this highly interconnected global economy. Today, we're traveling to Frankfurt, Germany to speak with Dimitris. Dimitris is joining us to talk about working, living, and thriving professionally in Frankfurt. Before we meet Dimitri, though, I want to welcome the teachers, students, Reach the World travelers, and early career professionals who are watching today. Feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course to share any questions you have for our guests as we go. With that, and without further ado, I'm ready to journey to Germany if you are. Dimitri, welcome to Reach the World.
Hi, Tim. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us at the end of your workday, at the end of your week. I'm excited to ask you just a couple questions and get your experiences and your take on your global career. And let's start right away with you personally and your global career journey. How did you start down this path towards a job where you interact on a daily basis with people from other countries and cultures?
Thank you. So, my name is Dimitris, and I'm coming from Greece. I was born and raised in Athens, and actually, I did my first degree in Athens as well. So I studied mathematics there, and during that period, I was also working part-time as a tutor and as IT support. Towards the end of the degree, I had to make a decision on whether to follow an academic teaching career or a more business-related path. I chose the latter, and therefore I moved to UK, where I did my master's in business administration with a focus in finance. I have to say that this was my first truly international experience. I was there with 100 more students from 20 different countries, working together on projects and various tasks. And it was the first time that I could really see that there are people with different backgrounds and different skill sets that could work together and produce together wonderful things. After my master's degree, I had to go back home for my military service. So I spent a year there, and after finishing, I had an offer to work as a trader in a bank in Athens. Actually, I worked in a foreign exchange desk, which by itself is quite international. So I had the opportunity to have on my daily to-do list to see what the world was doing. I always tend to believe that when you're in markets, you might not be able to influence the world too much, but you definitely have a good spot to see what's going on. I stayed there for quite some years, actually. And at some point, I moved from the buy side to the sell side and joined Citibank in Athens, but covering corporate clients for sales. A few years after, my manager at the time told me that it would be better to move to Germany. This was a move towards the center, from a peripheral hub to a central hub in Europe. And actually, it is the team that I'm still working for. And now I'm covering the Nordics, the Nordic corporates, meaning clients from Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. I think that in a nutshell is my path. And I don't know if you want to ask anything further than that.
Interesting. Out of curiosity, I know you speak Greek and English. Do you speak other languages beyond that, or those your two languages?
I speak basic German and French.
German and French. All right, 4 languages. That's impressive. What is your favorite thing about living and working in Frankfurt?
Good question. I mean, There was a joke when I initially came here. I made the same question to my colleagues, and I received an awkward answer saying that, you know what, the airport of Frankfurt is only 15 minutes away. And I was a bit shocked because I was asking him of what it is beautiful in Frankfurt, and he was pointing at the airport. Of course, what he meant was something different, and I realized that a bit later on. Frankfurt in Germany is in the center of Europe, so everything is close from here. With a 3 or 4 hours drive, you can visit more than 5 countries. And again, using the airport, you can literally go everywhere. But what I like in Frankfurt is the fact that it is generally an easy city. It is a city which is the most international city in Germany, and it's a city that has a good vibe. It is functional, it is working. So yeah, I think that the balance of life in Frankfurt is pretty good. In my case in particular, since I already have children, I think it's a nice place to raise children.
What was the hardest thing to get used to when you moved from Athens to Frankfurt?
Good question. Generally speaking, whenever you move from a country, you have to give away a lot of things, meaning that you're going from a comfort zone, from a place that you know well, that you have a lot of friends, that you have your family, that you know how things work, and you have to establish yourself in a new environment. So when I moved to Frankfurt, I had to go through a small bureaucratic setup, which took some time. But when it was completed, it was done for good. It was a very German way of doing things, right? So hard in the beginning, but it works for a lifetime.
Okay. What is your daily life like? What's an average day in your work week like?
Post-COVID or
Let's say pre-COVID.
pre-COVID. Generally speaking, as I told you before, I'm in the foreign exchange business, and my clients are outside Germany. So I wake up rather early in the morning to get a brief of the market and understand what I'm going to see later in the day. And then I go to the office and start servicing my clients. In our line of business, there are things that you can schedule. You can schedule some calls, you can schedule some meetings. There's some admin work that needs to be done, but we have also a lot of ad hoc things going on as we are servicing real time, our clients. This is the day, and again, due to my position, I also have to travel quite a lot in order to meet my clients. I said pre-COVID and post-COVID because at this point of time, we're now starting to travel again. So there was a period of 1.5 years where I couldn't travel.
Okay, you had mentioned that Frankfurt really feels like it's at the center of everything, especially in Europe. Do you like that aspect of travel? Do you like going to visit all the countries around Germany and you said the Nordic countries as part of your work life?
I really find it one of the best things that I have in my working experience. So this is hard-coded on the work that I'm doing. It's not something which has happened once in a blue moon. It is part of my work, and I have to say I really enjoy it.
It strikes me that being so close to other European countries that have distinct languages, cultures, lots of variation within a short area, a nearby area. Do you have to really understand, like when you go to Sweden, what's different between Sweden and Norway and France and all of these places that you're traveling for work? Is it a lot to keep track of for you, those different sort of ways that you conduct business?
Yes and no. So it is important whenever you speak and you cooperate with a person from a different culture uh, to be a bit more conservative on the way you behave because you might act unintentionally in a way that can be insulting for him. So whenever I have a new relationship or a new contact, I try first to test the waters to understand where he's standing. Generally speaking, though, and I have already quite a decent experience, I never had problems with that because people, to the extent that they see that you are true, so you're not trying to be fake, and you are there to service them and do business, they can easily go with it. That said, the main communication language is English, which is not the mother tongue for any, neither for me nor for them. So there is some understanding that we try to use the language the best way possible. We try to communicate effectively, and this doesn't usually produce any problems.
Hmm.
But yes, I agree that it will be better for a Mediterranean person like me, who I typically am quite loud, to try to restrain myself and see how the other people want to be treated.
Hmm. Interesting. We at Reach the World talk a lot about global competency, the skills you need in order to move seamlessly between different countries and cultures and get along and form productive relationships. Are there any of those skills or global competencies that you use on a daily basis that are just essential to your success in your workplace?
I mean, there are hard skills and soft skills, right? So there's a set of hard skills, knowledge that you usually gain from practice or from the university, which is always needed because in the end of the day, I'm a specialist. So I need to be able to cope with certain problems. But there are also soft skills. And I would argue that they're also equally important. And it's not any hard science, but being professional, being punctual, being open, being reliable, being able to carry on tasks and complete them alone, taking responsibility. These are things that every person should have. Some people need more time, some people less, but I think that for every young professional, it is a mindset that he should have early on. And really, I really believe that this can help them on their career. When you are also talking about the international environment, I think you should also have an open mind on the things that you see. If one wants to become international, the only thing I can guarantee is that it will be challenging. It will have way more variables than staying at home or working on your home base, but it will also gives you perspective. I think the experience of living and working abroad is transformative. So whoever wants to do it, I can guarantee that when he goes back, he'll be a different person. And I personally find this really exciting.
I think that's just a wonderful description. I love the idea that there are way more variables when you enter into the global world, because some people find that super exciting and some people find that very sort of scary at first or challenging. But I think that's a very good way to say it. For all of our audience who is early in their career and coming off of perhaps an initial study abroad experience or a first time really engaging and living outside of the United States, what are some things that those students or early career professionals can do to make themselves competitive candidates for a job with CitiFX or a multinational corporation where they want to be engaged in these global variables, this life of internationalism?
That's a very good question. And again, I mean, the hard skills are something that one must get on the university. I would say that having some sort of being good with computers, even better have some programming background can help, but it's not a prerequisite.
Mhm.
Languages is a plus, and depends on the country that you will go to. In some cases, it is really necessary. In some cases, it is less, but it's definitely a plus. And particularly when you compete with other people, um, if you don't know the local language and another person knows it, he might have an advantage over you. So talking about the first interaction when somebody screens CVs, I think that can make a small difference, particularly in the entry level. That said, I have an advice that I want to give to young people, right? Because sometimes we think that we need to go to another country or to another environment and we must become somebody else. And I think that's the worst advice that one can give, right? So I'm personally I'm Greek. As I said before, I'm a bit loud, I'm a bit extrovert. If I try to become German, I will never succeed because any German will be better than me. If I try to become a Swedish person or a person from Norway or Denmark, I will never succeed. So, and that applies to everything. So, for the people that want to join, to start their career, I would advise them to be honest with themselves and honest with the person that they will meet and will give the interviews. I think this will be highly appreciated.
That is just fantastic advice. Thank you for that. In your future career, your future professional growth, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? Do you feel like you're going to keep jumping around? I know it's a hard question to consider, but do you like the variables and being new places, or do you really feel like you like Frankfurt?
It's a very good question. And I have to say that despite the fact that I have been actually with the same team for quite some time, the actual work has changed massively over the last 10 years, 2 or 3 times. So I'm doing a completely different job of what I did 10 years ago, a different job from what I was doing 7 years ago, a different job that I was doing 2 years ago. Um, so again, coming on the concept of open mind, you need to have a passion for what you're doing, but you have to be open to embrace the changes and try to see where you fit and where you're more happy. So I don't know exactly where I will be in 10 years, but I know that I will try to be in a place where I feel comfortable and I feel creative and happy. One more comment there. When you do your first move, the first move is the most difficult of all because you haven't done it before and all the unknowns are ahead of you. So even for me, I didn't I haven't started working in Germany after university, as I said before. I spent some time in my home country working there, and the older you get, the more difficult it is to change an environment. The first move is the most difficult because you don't know what to expect. I can say now, even that I have 2 children, that the second move would be way easier because you know what to expect now. You know that you will have difficulties, but you know that you have done it before. And that's that's so true. So I don't know where I'll be in 10 years, but it wouldn't surprise me if at some point decide to leave a country because that's actually doable. And in this global environment, if you take away COVID, it's actually something that everybody can do.
All right, thank you. To end on sort of a lighter note, you are really an expert in two markets, Athens and Frankfurt. I'd love to know your perspective if I were a first-time visitor to either of those places. We can start with Frankfurt and then maybe dip back into Athens. What's something I would absolutely have to do to best experience each of those places, either something you eat or something you do or something you visit?
So the words of my sister, Frankfurt is a typical Western European city. It has a river, it has a bridge, it has a cathedral. On top of that, I would add that it has a nice set of skyscrapers, which are its trademark. So it is a beautiful city to see and watch, and particularly again before COVID, if you are into cars or into books, you have the annual festivals, which are the biggest in Europe, and really interesting to see. You also have one of the best soccer leagues in Europe. So these are things that you can easily do. And if you're into nature, of course, trekking and hiking is the German tradition. So you can find numerous routes to follow, which are actually very interesting. This is what I would say from Frankfurt. It has a very good set of restaurants. I would say it has too many for the number of inhabitants in the city. So the cuisine is never a problem. We have top quality. So along with the traditional German cuisine, you can taste everything. It is a wonderful city for an escape of 3-4 days. I think if you want to go to do more than that, you need to combine it with something else or with an activity, a specific activity. For Athens, I think it's a bit of a different story, right? The city is huge. It's a capital with a huge history and many things to see. So for somebody that visits for the first time, I would suggest him to do the usual top 3 that everybody should do. Visit the Parthenon to begin with, and then try to have some time and try to feel the local atmosphere. I think Athens is a metropolitan city with a distinct color, and it is worth for somebody that has time to spend some time to feel it. Of course, I'm totally biased.
You mentioned this in passing, but I have to ask, are you a soccer football fan? Do you follow?
I mean, I'm not a keen follower, but I try to stay on top of the news.
I feel like moving within Europe might present some conflicts of which club you support, especially if a Greek team is visiting Germany or vice versa.
I will tell you the latest one. I mean, Sweden disqualified Greece for the so I had mixed feelings for that. But yes, it is always the case. But it is also something very interesting and beautiful to speak with your friends and clients.
All right, Dimitri, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so much fun talking with you and learning more about your global career journey. I also want to thank our entire audience for tuning in today. There are more Citi Global Career Journey stops to come, so stay tuned. And if you missed any of our previous stops in London, Johannesburg, Tel Aviv, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Bangkok, Singapore, Kampala, several more, you can find recordings of those events at Reach the World's YouTube channel, where we've set up a special Citi Global Career Journey playlist. Special thanks to the Citi E4Education campaign and to all our many wonderful Citi volunteers for making this learning experience possible. Dimitri, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.